Who doesn't love a good old classic, crispy, chewy French baguette? It's probably one of my favorite breads of all time and one of the first ones I learned to make in culinary school. And while there is some time involved, it probably only requires 10 to 15 minutes of actual real work. And my promise to you is that this is the last baguette recipe you're ever going to need. But first, we need to go back to yesterday. Sound good? Let's bake. I'm going to be using bread flour for this baguette. It has a higher protein content, which is better for gluten development and structure, although AP flour will absolutely work for this. Now, as far as brands are concerned, for me, whatever's organic and on sale. Now, we're going to start by making a Poolish, which I'll explain what it is in a second. For now, measure out 250 grams or 2 cups of bread flour and add it to a container or a bowl. If you're just starting to get into baking, the best way to measure out all the ingredients are on a scale. It just is. And you can pick one up for maybe $10 on Amazon. I'll drop a link to the one that I'm using here. And also, you heard me say imperial measurements. Now, there is huge controversy on how to properly measure that, and I'm going to show you how I'm doing it. Fluff the flour up a little bit with a spoon. Then, using that same spoon, just add the flour into 1 measuring cup. It should fill a bit over the top, then using a knife, just scrape it to level it off. And this is how you properly measure, and if you follow the imperial for this, it will absolutely work. At this stage, I'm adding in 0.2 grams or a 1/16 teaspoon of yeast. And I'm using active yeast. I think the brand was Red Star, I'm not too sure. But instant yeast definitely is good to use. Next, I'm adding in 250 grams or 1 cup plus 2 teaspoons of room temperature filtered water. Now, the reason I prefer filtered is because tap water can sometimes have higher levels of chlorine, which can kill the yeast. So for me, better to be safe than sorry. Using a dough whisk or even a fork is fine. Mix all the ingredients until combined. Now, this is a Poolish. It's a pre-ferment, which helps add a ridiculous amount of flavor, lift, and even extend shelf life by a day or two. It's a good thing, and I promise you can absolutely pull this off. Once the flour is completely hydrated, we need to let it ferment, and to do so, I'm going to let it sit for 12 to 16 hours. And it needs to be somewhere that's not ice cold, preferably around the 70 to 72 degrees F range. If it's too cold, the yeast won't activate, and it could take an additional 8 hours to get where we need to go. I've got a little spot upstairs that's decently near a vent, so that's where I keep it. And whatever weird place you pick, I'm sure it'll be great. It's now 5 p.m., so in the morning, after 15 hours at 8 a.m., the Poolish is ready to roll. You should have some bubbles going and it being probably close to double in size. And this is why I love using these Cambro containers for bread, so I can get a clear picture of how much things have risen. Now, for one of my favorite parts of making bread, the smells. Oh, I do. I love that smell so much. It's sweet, weedy, maybe a little hint of beer or yogurt. It's just one of those things, like, you know, fresh bread is going down today, and I love it. The easiest way I know how to make this is in a stand mixer. So in that bowl, add 250 grams or 2 cups of bread flour. Next, add in 6 grams or 1 teaspoon of salt, and I'm using Diamond Crystal just as an FYI. Now, add in 4 grams of active yeast, and using a whisk, mix all the ingredients together until they're combined. Then, using the back of your hand, just make a well right in the center. And that well is for the Poolish, so scrape as much of it as you can from the container right to the center of it. It's going on the stand mixer along with that hook attachment. I'm just going to put it on low speed just to get some things moving. In the meantime, I've got 95 grams or 6 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon of water. Just go get that gram scale. You'll thank me later. Microwave it for 15 seconds or until it's around 35 degrees C or 95 degrees F. At this point, just slowly drizzle the water into the mixer. Once it's in there, boost the speed up 1 notch. Don't worry, I know things look a little wet, but within a minute or so, things are going to start to come together. We want this to mix for a good 6 to 7 minutes. Now, if you don't have a mixer, it really is no problem. You follow the exact same roadmap, except at the end, you need it by hand for a good 3 to 4 minutes. That's it. Okay, let's go have a look at the dough, and as you can see, it's formed and the sides of the bowl are clean. This is great. You'll notice it's a bit sticky, and it's all good. It means it's properly hydrated. And I've been baking for a minute, and early on I learned that shower caps are where it's at for covering dough bowls. After that 30 minutes, I'm going to come back, and what I want to do is perform some folds. You'll see the dough was a little flat. This is known as a slack dough. So to strengthen the gluten in it, pull it up and fold it over into the dough. I usually do this for a good 30 to 45 seconds, but don't pull too hard. You should never rip the dough. Once it becomes taut like this, add back on the cap and let it sit for another 30 minutes. Then return and repeat the folds until it's taut, and if you feel like it's still a little slacky, repeat this process one more time. At this stage, I'm putting the shower cap back on, and now I want to proof it. And a little trick that I learned back in the day for the perfect proofing environment is in an oven that is completely turned off with the door cracked, which forces that oven light to be on. This will create a really nice warm temperature so the yeast can really start to activate. I know it's weird, but little tricks like this always make food worth remembering. All right, let's take the dough out, and as you can see, it's doubled in size, which is exactly what we want. Give the table a gentle dust and then get the dough right onto the table. And my goal at this point is to separate it into thirds. And you can totally eyeball it, or you can feel free to measure it up to you. You'll be right around that 272 to 274 grams per dough ball, and it's absolutely cool to take chunks from one piece and add it to another to make them equal size. Now what I want to do is make these taut, so forming my hand in a cup motion, cover the dough and vigorously roll it in a circular motion to help the dough form into a tight ball just like this. Repeat the process for the other three and place them on a lightly floured surface and cover with a kitchen towel to rest for 30 minutes. It's finally time to shape these bad boys up, and there are a couple ways to do it. Lay the dough flat, and what you can do is fold it over 1/3 and press it to make a seam. Give it a 180-degree turn and fold the other part completely over, pressing your fingertips into that seam. Now, do one fold over and gently press down throughout the process. Then simply roll it out, starting gently in the center and becoming firmer towards the end to sort of taper them off. This is great and for sure can take some practice, so don't get too discouraged if you can't get this out of the gate. But I believe in you, you've got this. The other way, and hat tip to my man Chef Brian Lagerstrom for this one, fold the dough over just a little bit, pressing at the seam, and continue to fold over just a little bit, pressing down every single time at that seam until you get all the way until the bottom. Once you're there, roll it out just the same as the other one. Now for one more proof, I just place it on a sheet tray lined with parchment paper, and while you probably could jam all three on here, I usually just do two and keep the last one on a separate pan. Cover with a kitchen towel and let it stand for 1 more hour. Now if you want to get a little fancy, you would use something known as a couche, which helps the baguettes keep shape. If you're a serious baguette maker, then you already have one of these, but if you're just starting off, honestly, they're not too necessary.
You know what's funny is a real true baguette would actually be significantly longer than this. It would be for a full-size sheet tray. This is a half-size sheet tray. So pretty much what I'm making, and 99% of people out there, is something known as a demi-baguette or a half baguette because, well, who's got an oven big enough for this? Really nobody, unless it's a restaurant. So in the end, just tell people you're making a baguette. They won't know.
With about a half hour left in that resting process is when I crank the stove up to 246 degrees C or 475 degrees F. Okay, it's finally time to start baking, but first we need to score them. You do this by using something called a lane, but honestly, if you've got a super sharp knife, that'll do just fine. Now there's no right or wrong way to do this, but I make 3 longer scores and with the blade at a slight angle going in about a 1/2 inch or 1 1/4 centimeters. I'm adding them to the oven on a middle rack, and to create a moist environment for better rising and browning, I usually spray 7 to 8 squirts of water. No squirt bottle, no problem. Add a small pan of boiling water to the bottom rack. Bake the bread for 21 to 22 minutes. It's pretty quick. and the smells will transform your kitchen into something heavenly. Seriously. Once they're done, you need to rest them until completely cool to room temp on a rack. And why do I always do this with bare hands? I'm ridiculous, I know. For those folks overly anal, you'll be between 205 and 210 degrees F or 96 to 99 degrees C internal. I know, I'm going back and forth from metric to imperial here, so my bad. And honestly, these are delicious to eat by themselves, or toasted up as crostinis, or even bruschetta, or maybe for French onion soup. Or how about probably the best sandwich of your life? You can get this one on my site at billyparisi.com. So good.
Now, if you're really getting into baking and you want to keep going, check out my sourdough. You won't believe how easy it is. It's fresh bread. It's chewy, crispy. Baguette for days, my friends. Woo!